The air in the federal courthouse was thick with anticipation. Every seat was filled, cameras lined the back wall, and the murmur of reporters, activists, and curious citizens buzzed like electricity through the room. At the center of the storm stood Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, unshaken, unbowed, and ready for battle. Today was not just about a fine, it was about principle. It was about the soul of free speech in America. Opposite her sat Judge Samuel Pritchard, a stern man whose reputation for maintaining strict courtroom decorum was matched only by his intolerance for public grandstanding. He believed he had the upper hand. He believed today would be a simple formality. Uphold a contempt of court charge against a brash politician, make an example of her, and move on. He had no idea he was walking straight into a constitutional firestorm. The bailiff called the court to order. Judge Pritchard adjusted his glasses, looked down at the case file, and then fixed his gaze on Jasmine Crockett. His voice was firm. Congresswoman Crockett, you are here today to answer for your behavior during a congressional inquiry into government corruption. Your outburst disrupted proceedings, halted testimony, and drew widespread criticism. You have been fined $15,000 for contempt. Before this court moves to enforce the penalty, do you have anything to say? Jasmine stood tall. Dressed in a sharp navy suit, her hair pulled back neatly, she exuded calm determination. When she spoke, her voice was even but filled with unmistakable passion. Your Honor, I do have something to say. This fine is not just punitive, it is unconstitutional. I intend to prove that my speech during the hearing was protected by the First Amendment. I will show that the real contempt here is not mine, but this court's willingness to punish dissent. A few gasps echoed from the gallery. Judge Pritchard narrowed his eyes. You may proceed, but understand, Congresswoman, this is a court of law, not a political rally. Jasmine nodded, unfazed. My remarks made during an open congressional hearing criticized the systemic failures of officials charged with protecting public interests. I spoke truth to power. That is not contempt of court. That is the very essence of democracy. Judge Pritchard interrupted. Miss Crockett, your words caused the committee to adjourn prematurely. Witnesses refused to testify afterward. That is disruption, plain and simple. Jasmine's smile was razor sharp. Disruption, Your Honor? Let us be precise. The disruption was the committee's refusal to address documented evidence of fraud. I invoked my right under parliamentary rules to raise a point of order 3 times. I was ignored each time. Only then did I speak up. My actions were not impulsive, they were deliberate and protected. She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. I direct this court's attention to Tinker v. Des Moines, where the Supreme Court ruled that neither students nor citizens shed their constitutional rights at the door. If teenagers can wear black armbands to protest an unjust war inside a classroom, I can certainly speak to corruption inside Congress. Judge Pritchard frowned. Miss Crockett, Tinker concerned symbolic speech in a school setting. This case concerns active disruption. Jasmine's eyes flashed. Then perhaps, Your Honor, Brandenburg v. Ohio is more appropriate. There, the court set the standard that speech is protected unless it incites imminent lawless action. My speech incited nothing but uncomfortable truths. A murmur swept the courtroom. Even seasoned reporters leaned closer, sensing history in the making. The judge leaned forward. And yet, Miss Crockett, you admit your words caused chaos in the chamber. Jasmine didn't miss a beat. Chaos existed long before I spoke, Your Honor. Corruption and deceit are the true chaos. My remarks simply brought them into the light. If revealing the truth causes disruption, then perhaps disruption is necessary. The judge scowled. This court does not reward theatrics. Jasmine remained composed. This is not theater. This is the practice of democracy. The tension crackled. Judge Pritchard tapped his gavel lightly, a warning. Present your case, Miss Crockett, or accept the fine. Jasmine nodded, pulling a file from her bag. Let's talk Cohen v. California. The court protected a man's right to wear a jacket stating, "For's the draft," inside a courthouse. His actions were deemed offensive but not criminal. My language during the hearing was less inflammatory and directed at exposing abuse, not mere protest. If Cohen's vulgar statement is protected, surely my plea for integrity in government deserves at least the same shield. Judge Pritchard shifted in his seat. He had not anticipated such a methodical defense. And what of the disruption, Miss Crockett? He pressed. This is not about your message, but your method. Jasmine's voice rose slightly, not in anger, but in urgency. Then let us discuss Texas versus Johnson. Burning the American flag, a deeply provocative act, was deemed protected expression. If burning a symbol is less disruptive than speaking truth to power in a hearing, then our priorities as a nation are dangerously misplaced. The gallery erupted in applause before the bailiff restored order. Judge Pritchard rapped his gavel sharply. Order. This is not a political theater. Jasmine stared at him, unwavering. This is not theater, Your Honor. This is the defense of our most sacred rights. Judge Pritchard exhaled, visibly frustrated. Miss Crockett, you have cited much precedent, yet none changes the fact that you disrupted a federal proceeding. That is the crux of contempt. Jasmine leaned in slightly. Contempt for what, Your Honor? Contempt for procedure? Or contempt for a system that prefers silence over accountability? She pulled another file from her bag. I have here an affidavit from a whistleblower, submitted last week. This witness confirms that the evidence I attempted to introduce during the hearing, evidence that was ignored, was authentic and credible. Had I remained silent, that evidence would have been buried. By speaking out, I served the hearing's true purpose, uncovering the truth. The judge's composure faltered. He looked from Jasmine to the affidavit, knowing that introducing new evidence would complicate matters significantly. You are presenting new material in the middle of a contempt hearing, he said, his voice tight. I am presenting context, Your Honor, Jasmine said smoothly. Context you cannot ignore if you are truly seeking justice, not mere obedience. The courtroom sat in stunned silence. Jasmine Crockett wasn't just defending her actions. She was putting the very integrity of the process on trial. Judge Pritchard rubbed his temples, clearly feeling the pressure. You are suggesting that your disruption was justified by the content of your speech. I am asserting, Jasmine corrected him, that my speech advanced the public interest, exposed wrongdoing, and was fully protected under the Constitution. Another pause. The judge looked weary now. Miss Crockett, the law is not a shield for chaos. Jasmine's reply was immediate. No, Your Honor. The law is a sword against tyranny. The gallery gasped again, the tension almost unbearable. After what felt like an eternity, Judge Pritchard spoke. I will take your arguments under advisement. A ruling will be issued within 10 days. The gavel came down with a crack. Court was adjourned. But the story was far from over. Outside the courthouse, the steps were packed with reporters and supporters. Jasmine Crockett emerged into a sea of flashing cameras and shouting questions. She raised a hand and a hush fell. I did not come here today to defend my reputation, she said. I came to defend our rights. I came to remind everyone that speaking truth to power is not a crime. It is a duty. Cheers erupted from the crowd. Journalists scrambled to transmit her words. By the end of the day, the Mikang stand with Crockett trended worldwide. Behind closed doors, Judge Pritchard wrestled with the weight of the decision. He had intended to make an example of Jasmine Crockett. Instead, he had given her a national platform. 10 days later, the ruling came. In a stunning decision, the contempt charge was vacated. The court ruled that while Crockett's actions were unorthodox, they were ultimately protected under the First Amendment. Jasmine Crockett had won. But more importantly, so had every American who believes that truth must never be silenced, no matter how inconvenient it may be to those in power. Her fight was just beginning, and this time the nation was watching.